I am on top of the world. How are you? What's up, John?
Hey, Tom, what's up?
Tom,
Nothing.
why are you in such a good mood? Why are you so happy today? Is it because football is back?
I am committed to being upbeat and positive as the first of 20 scheduled games for the Patriots are about to be begun. Because there's going to be bumps, there's going to be bruises, there's going to be missteps. They're going to play like ass. And you have to understand that that's part of the process when you are basically 31 or 32 in a 32-team league.
So, Tom, we were just reading some of your column that you wrote for NBC Sports Boston today, and you were talking about how the Patriots have basically had their faces ripped off by two different free agents, Brandon Ayuk and Calvin Ridley. They have no face left to save. They're going through reconstructive surgery. Perhaps that's the Packers' way of going through a whole bunch of drafts and developing the talent they have. What is a realistic timeline for the Patriots to have this nebulous identity of at least being an attractive destination for a free agent or tradable guy to come to?
Optimistically,
Yes.
I would say by next spring. I mean, if you're a team that nobody else wants to play by the end of the year because of your defense, if you're a team that exceeds expectations in terms of being 31 or 32 in the league, and Gerard Mayo's message takes root, and the offense, Jalen Polk, for instance, and in particular, and Demario Douglas in particular, become receivers that, whether it's Jacoby Brissett or preferably Drake May throwing to them, a wide receiver or a left tackle can look at this place and say, yeah, you know what, they're building something there. That was a pain-in-the-ass team to play. They played hard for Mayo. They have a quarterback who has shown some capability. I can play in that offense. And that's why I think guys like Ridley and Ayuk look at this place and go, no flipping way. I have no idea what I'm getting into. And if you look at the wide receiver stats in the last couple of years, their leading receiver is usually around 48 catches. So no thanks, not doing it. And I can't blame them.
Tom, I want to follow up on that because you mentioned a team at the end of the year, no one else wants to play. Where does Drake May and his development fit into this? Like, do you think he needs to play half or a third of the season and look at least representative or solid for another free agent, another guy to look at and say, oh, I want to go there? Or is it just if they look good overall and then the promise of May is there behind it?
I think it's look good overall, look competent, look like you are a team heading in the right direction. But certainly Mayo is a component, and he would be somebody who would, put more chips on the scale and tip it towards the idea of, well, it's not just Jacoby Brissett leading the team to a 7-11 season that looked pretty good. Half of that was Drake May, and he had that 400-yard game against whoever. And, yeah, we can see they're going to be more aggressive. May has to be involved in that. And that's the interesting thing when we look at the gap right now, because the gap is probably bigger now in the first week of August than it was at the beginning of training camp between Jacoby Brissett and Drake May. Some of that can be expected because Brissett has been in the NFL. He understands where all, the tripwires are in running the offense. He understands the nuances of reading a defense, getting it out on time, and where not to go with things. And May is still learning all that stuff. But that's, to me, what's difficult to envision. At what point does a perhaps competitive Patriots team with a competitive quarterback in Jacoby Brissett, who might not be the reason that they're losing games, say, all right, Jacoby, that's enough. I know you're completing 63% of your passes. You have 15 touchdowns and 7 picks, but we're 2-7, and we're going to go to Drake. That's going to be. Can you envision that, Mego? That's going to be a very interesting time.
When you say that, it makes me think about our first season of Quick Slants together when we talked about what was happening in Miami with Tua and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Yeah. And obviously that team was performing a lot better than the record that you just detailed. But the situation where it's not an issue with the quarterback that you have in, but it becomes, what is this season about? Is this season about building towards the future and getting the kid in and developing him? Or are we trying to be some kind of fringy playoff scary team at the end of the season?
Yeah, and I look back at that, and Ryan Fitzpatrick took it really badly for his dignified, classy, whatever other word you want to apply to a journeyman quarterback who has always been highly respected. He didn't take it well. he was pissed, and he said he was pissed. He was not pissed at Tua. He was pissed at the situation because he wanted to win games and thought he gave them the best chance. So how would Brissett deal with it? How would his teammates deal with it, like a David Andrews? But you have to understand he's the 3rd overall pick. Tua was probably more polished than Drake Maye is right now, coming out as, what was he, the 5th or the 6th pick in 2020?
He was 6th,
whatever
and
he
Justin Herbert went 5, or they went back-to-back, something like that.
Right, exactly. But that's what you're going to have to confront at some point. But that is where you're playing and laying your bodies on the line as players, but the Patriots have to be cognizant of the fact that, look, nobody wants to come here, and even if Jacoby leads us to 6-11, if we don't get Drake Maye's ass on the field and he's not throwing downfield a few times a week, how much more appetizing is this place in March to whichever wide receiver shakes free?
I want to go back to something that you said just before there about the gap between Jacoby Brissett and Drake Maye being a little bit wider now than it was at the beginning of training camp. Does any of that have to do with just from your own judgment perspective, being down there at camp and talking to people around the team? The timeline that Drake is on, is he hitting the schedule that they just broadly expected of him, or are there some fits and starts that they have not really anticipated with him?
I think it might, Mego, have more to do with Jacoby Brissett than Drake Maye. I mean, Brissett looks really in command. Arm strength is excellent. Decision-making's been excellent. 4 hours from now, he's probably going to look like trash for 2 series, and everybody's going to say, what are you talking about, Tom? Be that as it may, if this is credit to Jacoby Brissett, who just really looks good, like game ready. The rest of the team might not, but he looks excellent. So I think that that's where you're seeing the gap between, say, I like using analogies. So a phenom 20-year-old starter in Major League Baseball as opposed to a journeyman 28-year-old starter who you would use as a spot starter. There's going to be games where the 20-year-old looks like he can't hit the broadside of a barn, and the 28-year-old spot starter is just fantastic, has great games. And I think that the experience is shining through to a large extent. Not that Drake Maye isn't making some unreal throws that Jacoby Brissett really doesn't make on a regular basis. If you said, okay, put it this way, I'm babbling, but the 10 best throws of camp, I would say 6 of them would probably be Maye's, maybe 5, 3 to Milton, 2 to Brissett. Most productive throws of camp, I would say 8 out of 10 would be Brissett's.
So it's kind of like a Bull Durham situation is what you're saying.
Correct.
So, Tom, with that in mind, what is your expectation tonight for the quarterback room? You mentioned that Brissett might go out there and not look good, but what are your overall expectations? Mayo's told us all 4 are going to play. Do you know how much we're going to see Drake Maye? What do you think we're going to see from him? Same thing, Zappe, Milton, kind of at the bottom of that depth chart. What's your just expectations for that group tonight?
I would think at least, and this is expectation, this is not information-based, just from the conversations we've had publicly with the coaching staff, I would imagine that Brissett will get half a quarter, maybe 2 or 3 drives, 2 drives, and then give it to Maye until into the second half. Let him execute a 2-minute drive at the end of the first half, go into the second half, and then let Joe Milton come in and give him a quarter plus, and then you either use Bailey Zappe or you don't. It doesn't really matter that much. It's the number of drives you get for these guys that you don't really know anything about when they're playing in a stadium with a scoreboard and referees. So that would be my expectation. My hope, too, would be that with both Maye and Milton, they're going to have an incredible amount of time to work on run game, handoffs, check down, screens. Give people something to look at really quick. I did a little article, 5 things I want to see, and the number 1 thing was air it out, brother. Air it out.
That's how I feel.
Give him on a second snap, provided you have enough room, throw the thing as far down the field as you friggin' can. And maybe somebody runs under it. Maybe it hits a cheerleader. Doesn't matter. Just show that that's there.
I very much want to see that, mostly from Drake Maye, but I'm open to it from Joe Milton, too. Tom, is there any chance that we see Matthew Judon in tonight's game playing any snaps? What's your expectation there? Do you have any new information about what's become a very strange situation with him and the Patriots?
I don't have the expectation that he would play, just given his, the amount of time in pads that while he takes part, he takes himself out, or the Patriots understand that he's going to come out after just a rep or two to begin a session. So to think that he would be out against another team in full contact, taking the risk of being injured before his salary becomes guaranteed, which is what happens in the first week of the season, I think that would be, if I was his agent, I'd be like, well, why would you do that? So I don't think that'll happen.
Tom, I got to ask you, and I know Mego's excited for me to ask this question, about their offensive line and this left tackle situation specifically. Vidarian Lowe's been getting a lot of reps with that first team. I mean, what is your confidence level, expectations, however you want to phrase it, for that offensive line going into tonight against the Panthers?
Generally low. My confidence level is low in their offensive line, and that's why, whether it was with Brandon Ayuk this past week, whether it was Calvin Ridley in free agency, whether it was Drake Maye in the drafts, I kept saying that I would have preferred to see the Patriots do more to address the offensive line. Drake Maye might be a terrific player. Chances are he will be at least pretty good. But if you had right now a trade down situation and you were able to add a top 10 tackle and J.J. McCarthy, however you were able to work it, whether that included trades back and then trades back up, this team would feel different to me. Right now, there's a lot of finger crossing about the tackle, about the quarterback, that has been present really since 2020. And I just don't understand why it has not been prioritized in an urgent manner.
I'm right there with you, Tom. All right, well, we will follow you, all your work on NBC Sports Boston. What kind of coverage you have going on for tonight's preseason game? I know your buddy is going to be over calling the game.
I know. The Senator will be on the call. Good for him. He'll be great. We have early edition. We have BST. We will have in-game content, you name it. And then, of course, we'll have the Patriots Talk Pod after the game, the aftermath.
Tommy Curran of NBC Sports Boston. You can catch him every Thursday with us and Tuesday with Gresham for you.